Welcome, my friends. Tonight I'll be reading from the Disney Storybook Collection. The story is called The Prince and the Pauper. Enjoy! Once upon a time, there was a good and kindly king. He ruled his country with fairness and generosity. But one day, the king became very ill and could no longer watch over his kingdom. His son, the prince, stayed by his father's bedside, worrying. The greedy captain of the guard saw this as his chance to rob the king's loyal subjects, since the king was too ill to protect them. Day after day, the captain and his soldiers filled up the palace with mountains of gold. Nobody could save the king from the thieving man until two peasants wandered near the palace looking for food. One of the paupers, Mickey, looked exactly like the prince. Of course, he didn't have fine clothes to wear or live in a palace, but he did have two loyal friends. One was a rather silly fellow called Goofy, and the other was a friendly dog named Pluto. Mickey and Goofy watched as the captain of the guards sped by in a royal coach filled with food. Pluto was so hungry that he chased the coach to the palace. "Stop!" Mickey shouted. "Come back!" And he ran off after his dog. When Mickey got to the palace, a guard waved at him and called him Your Majesty. Meanwhile, inside the palace, the real prince was sitting through another boring lesson with Professor Horace. To amuse himself, he took out his pea shooter and aimed it at his servant, Donald. A little later, there was a loud crash in the hallway. The prince and the pauper had each hidden in a suit of armor. When they went tottering down the hallway, they crashed into each other. Lifting their helmets, the two stared and stared. The prince talked Mickey into changing places, headed out of the palace. The prince made it past the royal guards, but he couldn't fool Mickey's dog, Pluto. When Goofy saw the prince, he was sure it was Mickey and struck up a conversation. The prince said hello, but then ran off. Back at the palace, Donald brought food for Mickey's room. Mickey reached out for a turkey leg, but Donald grabbed it first. "I'm checking it for poison," he said, biting into a juicy drumstick. Pretty soon Donald had eaten all the food. Poor Mickey didn't even get a bite. Next, it was time for the royal lessons. Mickey did not fare well at falconry or horse riding. But the prince wasn't doing any better. He had tried to go sledging with Mickey's friend. The prince headed for the marketplace where he saw the captain of the guards stealing food from the poor people. He ordered the captain to stop. But the captain just looked at the raggedy peasant and laughed. A few minutes later, the town crier came to the square with news that the king had died. I must go to the palace straight away," the prince said. "I will miss my father greatly, but now it is my duty to take over as king." "Gosh," said Goofy, You're the prince? I thought you were my friend Mickey. I am your friend from now on, waved the prince, rushing off to the palace. The captain of the guards was waiting for his royal highness. As soon as the prince got back to the palace, he was thrown into the dungeon. I see your royal ring, the captain said, but it won't do you any good. As soon as the pauper is crowned king, I shall unmask him as an impostor and rule the kingdom myself. But the prince was not alone in the dungeon. Donald was there too. Soon a strange-looking guard came to unlock the dungeon door. It was Goofy. He led the prince out just in time for the coronation. Meanwhile, Mickey was stalling and trying to avoid being crowned king. Please, don't put it on my head, he begged. He is not the prince, yelled the wicked captain. He's an impostor. Seize him. But I'm not an impostor, came a voice from a high balcony. It was the real prince. There was a huge fight, and Mickey, the prince, and their friends trapped the captain of the guards and his soldiers. Finally, the prince was crowned king. His first act was to arrest the captain and his men. Now that the kingdom was once again in kind, caring hands, Mickey was happily reunited with his friends and faithful dog, and the new king was content. Thank you, my friends, for listening to tonight's The Prince and the Pauper story. I hope you're following the channel, liking this video, and letting me know what you'd like to hear next. Besos!